Welcome to ARDEX Answers podcast, where you'll find the latest and greatest on flooring, tiling and waterproofing, as well as general construction for the Australian building industry.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Monique Fenech from ARDEX, and joining us back on the couch is Chris Brady. Welcome back, Chris.
Happy to be back in.
It's a question today that's come from our listeners, which is great. So we do have a form on our pod which allows for people to fill in some frequently asked questions or just something that they'd like to know a technical answer for on one of our episodes. So it's good to hear that we've been able to respond to that. And this is a tricky type of question. I think this is a Chris type of question, really.
Hopefully I can make it understandable.
I think you've done well so far with the pods, which has been great. Good feedback from that. So it's all about pedestals today and sheet membrane. So what role do pedestals play in the construction of balconies, for example? Because this is where we usually see that type of application. Is that right?
Yep, absolutely. So generally they're there to act as your waterproofing surface and provide a nice stable, consistent membrane system ready for tiling or for a pedestal system. Pedestal system is a little bit different in that it's not directly bonded to the membrane itself, and there are some advantages to that, which we'll get into in a sec.
Yeah, great. So how does the sheet membrane contribute to the overall waterproofing of a balcony? Maybe we'll start there.
So the sheet membranes are a consistently manufactured thickness membrane, which are a little more expensive than your liquid systems, but when it comes to very large areas and from a warranty perspective, probably a better choice. Usually double the warranty period of, say, a sheet versus a liquid, and it's going to having that consistent thickness and not being so dependent on the substrate surface itself. Sheets are a little bit more suitable for your pedestals than liquids. Yeah. You can do it with liquids, but sheets are generally your optimal choice.
And so pedestals, is that something for pavers or particular types of tiles?
Yeah, so generally you're looking at pavers or very thick stone systems. You do want them fairly thick and strong in order to actually not crack under the load, because you've got to think about it, it's hovering above the membrane on top of little feet. So just at the joins, at the intersections of each of the pavers. So you've got to make sure that the tiles, number one, are suited. They're not going to crack over time. But also, having something that thick is just going to contribute to the overall stability of the system.
So what sort of installation practices are unique to pedestal systems compared to direct tile installations, say?
So for direct tiling, you are literally applying an adhesive directly to the membrane. When it comes to pedestal systems, you are placing the column, the pedestal, directly on top of the membrane and then placing the tiles on top of that. Now with that pedestal, there is the risk that, especially if they've got some rather sharp edges, that when you're walking on top of the tile system or pedestal system, it could potentially scratch or abrade the membrane. So one thing that we do as an additional step when it comes to pedestal systems is just having a small little offcut of, say, like rubber or an extra offcut of the same membrane sitting directly under it. That way, if there is movement happening, it abrades the sacrificial layer as opposed to the active membrane.
And are they popular, this system?
They're getting more and more popular. When it comes to New Zealand in particular, it's something that externally, they don't really do directly tiled systems anymore. They have paver and pedestal systems pretty much uniformly externally.
Right, due to the weather, I'd say.
Yeah, and potential movement, things like that from earthquakes.
Yeah, well, just on that, what are some common mistakes to avoid when installing pedestals and sheet membranes on balconies? You mentioned there just being careful with the abrasive element to it.
So making sure that layer of protection is there. Some pedestals come with their own small little rubber mat, which goes underneath them. That's perfectly fine to do. Another thing to be aware of is making sure that the membranes that are used underneath them are actually suited for purpose. A lot of membranes are not specifically UV stable, and there are negotiations and compliances that should really be met in order to have something that's going to be used under a paver and pedestal system, because you're not getting those grout joints between your tiles actually filled in these systems.
Right.
So UV is coming directly down. Sure, it's a very minimal amount of UV that's coming through, but it's something that you want to make sure the membrane is up to the task in handling that.
I did not even think about that. So in terms of that, so no grout whatsoever, you're saying? Yeah.
No, they're just an open system.
Yeah, okay. So they're popular with tilers and so forth. Do customers really know about this option? Is it well known?
Look, it's not something that's as popular with, say, homeowners designing their own places, but when it comes to large scale areas, especially rooftops, buildings, the advantage is because it's not bound down. If there is an issue or a suspected issue with the membrane system, you can just pull up those tiles and inspect underneath. The issue with having a bonded system is when you try to pull that tile up, you are then ripping the adhesive off as well, and that membrane is probably going to get damaged in the process. So in the investigation step, you might end up causing a problem with the membrane.
I can see how that'd be worthwhile. Can you share best practice tips with us for tilers to ensure a successful installation?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, a lot of them double up on what we've already said, making sure the membrane's suitable for the application, making sure that that protective layer is installed, ideally pre-planning the area to make sure that you are not specifically situating your columns, the pedestals, on top of sheet laps, things like that, because that's where there's going to be a hump in the membrane and can lead to some instability issues. And in general, just following the guidelines of the manufacturers of the membrane. There are even some liquid systems that can be used under pedestal and pavers, like a WPM 002, but you've got to make sure that it's applied correctly and you're taking those protection steps. And the last thing is afterwards, just generally making sure that you're inspecting the system as well. Because it's a elevated system, anything that you're washing the pavers with on top of it, oils, cleaning agents, they're going to drip right down and make contact with the membrane. So it's very important that you're constantly checking the membrane, making sure you're not using overly aggressive chemicals on there, because that's seeping down and making direct contact with the membrane.
Sounds like quite a lot of technical expertise is required to install these. So what training do you suggest, just as a last point, for people to get more information and to skill up on this type of installation?
Yeah, sure. Look, best things to look at are actually the pedestal manufacturers themselves. They've got a lot of documentation out there in terms of their installation techniques, but also from the membrane standpoint, we offer sheet membrane courses here at ARDEX. We do mention and have a few modules that we've set up internally, which can show people how they're kind of set up and what the protective measures are.
Great. Well, it's been fantastic to hear this topic on the couch with you, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.